This story kicks off with our main character, dead tired. He just can't figure out how his office mates have so much energy on a Monday morning. It's been 2 months since he started this commute to the grind, and he still hasn't gotten used to this exhausting routine. Noticing a crowd on the street, he gets curious about what's going down so early on the sidewalk. He quickly realizes it's a circle of grown men crying because their crypto accounts took a 40% nosedive. Laughing at their misfortune, a slick suit mocks them, saying a blue-collar salary can't even touch his profits. Thinking the whole thing is a clown show, our boy just laments how these virtual coins have ruined the youth. However, spotting some entitled punks smoking in the middle of the street, he sees that some clowns never change. Just then, an old man in a uniform approaches the group, politely asking the troublemakers to make way. With a world of patience, the old-timer lets them know the cigarette smoke is blowing right into the next building, bothering everyone inside. Mocking the situation, the punks start laughing in the old man's face, showing zero respect. Suddenly flying off the handle, one of the bullies raises his voice, looking to start trouble with the working man. Grabbing the old-timer by the collar, the thug throws it in his face that he's just a useless, old security guard. Screaming like a maniac, the delinquent asks if the guard's pathetic salary is going to cover his multi-million-dollar losses. Meanwhile, his jerk of a friend whips out his phone and starts recording for YouTube, thinking this humiliation is the greatest thing ever. With zero empathy, the duo films the terrified old man trying to apologize to avoid getting physically assaulted. Sneaking up behind the cameraman, our MC chimes in that the recording looks like a lot of fun. Startled by the sudden appearance, the thug backs away, wondering where this guy in a suit sprouted from. With an ice-cold stare, our boy shows the two delinquents that their nasty little game is officially over. Taking charge of the situation, he apologizes for the disturbance and protects the old man, putting him behind his back. Quick on the draw, the MC lays down the law, telling them that's no way to treat their elders on the street. But the punks couldn't care less and start clowning on our hero, calling him a loser wage slave. Full of swagger, the bully gets in his face, telling the office worker to shut his mouth and mind his own pathetic life. Doing some quick salary math in his head, our boy realizes just how little home pay he gets at the end of each month. After hearing the numbers, the thugs burst out laughing, calling that kind of money a beggar's pocket change. Dripping with arrogance, the suit claims he makes that same amount in just one little week of easy profits. Without a second thought, our MC grabs the thug's face with one hand, squeezing the life out of him without a shred of pity. Radiating a killer aura, he warns him that even if it's the same amount of money, there's a huge difference. He slams the punk's head straight into the ground, stating that scum's money has absolutely no value in society. Due to the brutal impact against the concrete, the punk lets out a scream of agonizing pain, his face completely mangled. Watching the beatdown from the sidelines, the other delinquent starts sweating bullets, recognizing the suit's moves. Pinned to the concrete, the aggressor hears our boy say that he didn't hit him because of the jokes about his low salary. We then find out that 10 years ago, this guy conquered the entire criminal underworld of the country through sheer force. Shaking in his boots, the thug's friend is in shock, unable to understand how a living legend became a mere office drone. Completely paralyzed with fear, the kid can only stare at the monster in front of him, praying he's not next. With a grim smile, our hero compliments the kid's clean shirt, already planning the perfect punishment for the suit. In another scene, we see the terrified kid playing chauffeur, giving our MC a ride on a motorcycle. Curious as can be, the driver asks why the former king of the B-Downs agreed to live like a normal worker. Showing no regrets, he explains that all that legend talk is just silly history from when he was a troublemaker. During the morning ride, the kid reflects that the people who maintain a steady routine are the ones who carry the world. Valuing honest work, he says that facing the daily grind in the city is the greatest sign of strength a person can have. With that, he advises the young offender to ditch this shallow life and find something that has real value. Trying to understand this philosophy, the biker asks just how much this legend makes per month, humbling himself at a company. Upon discovering the suit's $1 million salary, our MC freaks out, seeing that the kid earns 3 times more than him. Snatching the offender's designer shirt as punishment, the hero tells him to step on it, so he won't be late for work. Finally at their destination, the gigantic headquarters of the Samjin group stands tall, ready to suck the souls out of its workers. At the bottom of the food chain, the trading company does all the dirty work behind the conglomerate's glamour. Known as the group's dumpster, the Samjin company will sell even dog poop if it turns a profit at the end of the month. Right at the main entrance, the firm's sign already indicates that the pressure there is relentless and the atmosphere is always hostile. Inside the main hall, all heck is breaking loose, with the boss tearing into one of the employees in front of all his colleagues. Furious with the paperwork, the manager yells, asking if the company has turned into a used motorcycle stand. Losing his patience, the suit tells his subordinate to redo the entire stack of paperwork and stop making so many excuses. Humiliated in front of everyone, the employee just lowers his head, apologizing and silently swallowing his pride. Frustrated with the team's incompetence, the boss turns his back, grumbling that it would be easier to give orders to a rock. Focused on his computer, our MC repeats, "I'm just a rock," like a mantra to keep from snapping and breaking everything. To lighten the mood, a female colleague whispers to the newbie not to mind the manager's tantrums because he's on the warpath today. Joking about the situation, he retorts by complimenting her courage for being the only one in the room who speaks her mind without fear. In a hushed voice, the girl reveals the hot gossip. The boss got a major chewing out from the shipping company earlier this morning. Suddenly, the office door is kicked open with a violent blow that startles everyone in the workspace. Charging in like a raging bull, Director Choi from the shipping company immediately bellows for the manager of the logistics team. In total shock, the boss jumps out of his chair, stammering as he sees his greatest tormentor invading the office like that. Full of swagger, the suited invader says he came to renegotiate the freight rates through yelling and pressure. Whispering to his friend next to him, our MC tries to find out who this entitled psycho is, acting like he owns the place. Quickly, the woman informs him that the guy is a spoiled director from a partner company who loves to boss everyone around. In an attempt to keep the peace, the poor manager explains that they can't increase the transportation costs yet again. Listening to the argument, our boy finds out that the pretty boy takes MMA classes and loves to beat up defenseless workers. Without warning, the scummy director lands a swift kick on the manager's leg, making the poor guy double over in pain instantly. Thrown to the floor, the injured boss still has to apologize to the cowardly attacker so he doesn't lose the company's contract. Desperate, the colleague tugs on the MC's sleeve, begging him to play dumb and not get involved in this absurd mess. But ignoring the warnings, our hero gets up from his chair, walking straight into the middle of the chaos without a second thought. In a quick reflex, he intercepts the paperwork in mid-air, preventing the entitled little director from humiliating the manager even more. Pissed off by the newbie's interference, the pretty boy pulls his arm back, preparing a punch to knock out the insolent guy. Blocking the attack with one hand, our boy stops the aggressor's wrist in the air as if it were a child's toy. In disbelief that his punch was nullified so easily, the punk demands to know who this office drone-playing hero is. With enviable composure, our MC protects the company documents while telling the guy to take it down a notch. With a smirk, the director asks if the newbie has any idea how dangerous it is to go head-to-head with the Mujin shipping company. Poking his finger at the hero's forehead, the arrogant little director tells the drone to listen up and keep his mouth shut. Full of himself, the suit asks if the firm doesn't teach basic manners. Without warning, the coward lands a kick to the newbie's gut, demanding that he bow first. In a pure act, our MC hunches over while the pretty boy calls him an idiot. Behind the pained expression, a dark and murderous aura begins to take over the boy. Desperate, the manager rushes to help his team and bows his head, apologizing to the aggressor. Faced with this sad scene, our protagonist can't understand how the boss swallows so much crap. After the blow-up, the mood in the office is heavy, with the two of them alone in the middle of the wrecked room. Later on the rooftop, the boss lights a cigarette and asks if the 28-year-old kid smokes. Straight to the point, the superior asks if the newbie has any idea why he was hired. Awkwardly, the ex-bully guesses it was because of his impeccable resume. Finding it funny, the old-timer reminds him that the kid only has a high school diploma and a motorcycle license. Through the smoke, the veteran reveals that the reason was something much deeper than a degree. Fixing his gaze, he confesses that he saw something pure and real in the young man's eyes during the interview. In the manager's memory, we see the former king of the beatdowns wearing a sharp suit and smiling confidently. Trusting his gut, the boss explains that he sensed a huge desire in the young man to succeed in life. However, he warns that the corporate world is full of crazies who won't listen to reason at all. Reinforcing the harsh reality, the veteran says that a worker's fate is to swallow their pride and bow their head. Like a good counselor, he asks him to play dumb next time and forget the humiliation. Not having it, our MC questions if, setting the company aside, this isn't unacceptable. With a sarcastic smile, he states that getting punched in the face by some random guy is way too humiliating for a man. Completely serious, the hero shows that he's not gonna let this aggression slide. No way. Near the elevator, he reveals that he took the kick on purpose, because he used to be a real tough guy. Night falls over the city, lighting up the sky as a plan for revenge is already brewing in his head. Firm footsteps echo down the dark street as our newbie walks toward his target. Standing in front of the martial arts gym, he decides to solve the problem the way he understands best. With the manager's advice in his head, the MC concludes that the only cure for a crazy person is an even crazier one. From inside the building, the sounds of violent punches begin to leak through the hallways. Right in the octagon, a brutal atmosphere is in full swing with a heavy training session underway. On the ring floor, a big guy begs for mercy while taking a completely one-sided beating. Without any pity, the arrogant little director pummels his training partner, demanding he defend himself properly. With a brutal kick to the ribs, the pretty boy shows that he really enjoys hurting others. Almost passing out, the poor sparring partner can't take any more of the beating, collapsed on the mat. Far from feeling sorry, the villain takes off his gloves, complaining that his opponent is a huge crybaby. With his nose in the air, the bully turns his back, thinking he's the king of the castle inside the gym. Disgusted by the cowardice, the gym owner confronts the playboy, tired of seeing his students get hurt. Nearby, the master tries to lecture the aggressors about limits and respect on the mat, staring at the teacher with hatred. The pretty boy throws it in his face that his money saved the gym from bankruptcy. Awkwardly, the owner tries to backpedal on the scolding, stammering in the face of his sponsor's financial power. Shoving a wad of cash into the trainer's chest, the jerk tells him to shut up and go get dinner. Demanding obedience, the playboy shakes the money, threatening to pull his support if he's not kissed up to right then and there. Selling his own dignity, the master takes the wad of cash, quietly accepting his submission. With a forced smile, the old-timer thanks him for the handout, turning his back and letting the coward do whatever he wants. Suddenly, the director's sadistic smile vanishes as he recognizes an unexpected visitor in the hall. Right at the door, our hero appears out of nowhere, politely asking if they can start the fight now. Shirtless, the pretty boy grumbles that today's youth thinks they know everything, suffering for no reason. With his mouth guard in, the villain snaps that the lives of drones like him aren't worth a single penny. Like an animal, the muscular guy shows off his physique and says he hates poor kids trying to play hero. Tightening his gloves, the coward warns that he's gonna rip out what little pride our worker has left. Up close, the playboy scoffs, asking if the kid traveled all this way just to avenge his wimpy boss. Ready for combat, the MC fires back that the guy talks a lot because he doesn't have any friends. Foaming at the mouth, the director throws a violent cross, promising it won't be just a little kick this time. Light as a feather, our hero makes fun of the fact that the rich kid pays to beat up defenseless newbies. Completely blind with rage, the punk yells that he's gonna kill the suit, while trying to land another punch. With monstrous agility, the former king of the streets dodges the kick and confirms that the pretty boy is just a sad, lonely guy. Panting and losing his mind, the gym fighter can't understand how none of his blows are landing. Flashing a demonic grin, the protagonist tests his opponent's confidence, asking if he's sure about that. Shooting him a deadly glare, our boy warns that if the playboy keeps this up, he won't have any teeth left for work tomorrow. In the blink of an eye, the hero lands a devastating counter attack right in the middle of the scummy little director's face. Groggy on the floor, the suit looks completely stunned, unable to process the truck that just ran him over. Clenching his fists tightly, the former Underworld leader warns that he's not afraid of getting fired from his job. Sent flying by the brutal impact, the villain discovers he picked a fight with a living legend himself. Fast as a missile, our MC doesn't give the cocky aggressor a single second to breathe. Taking another straight to the jaw, the pretty boy feels the weight of true violence go down his throat. Flying across the ring, the entitled director lets out an agonizing scream of pain as his bones nearly turn to dust. Seeing the terror on his opponent's face, our boy scoffs, saying he'll be wetting his pants any second now. Focused on the company, the hero decides to use his enemy's anger to force a favorable business deal. Full of fury, the spoiled director falls perfectly into our audacious worker's psychological trap. Blinded by hatred, the playboy swears on his life that he's going to finish the suit for good. Cold and calculating, the protagonist lands a meteoric punch that nearly takes the punk's head off. In the audience, the gym students are in shock, watching their invincible sponsor get used as a ragdoll. Without any effort, the hero asks how he had the nerve to act tough when he hits so weakly. All messed up, the villain finally realizes he's up against a completely relentless monster. About to finish him, the newbie tells the trash to shut up and stop acting like a cornered rat. Standing over the defeated aggressor, our MC finally proposes a deal that's impossible to refuse. Speaking to the defeated trash, our MC demands that the company suffer no losses because of their fight. Totally humiliated, the playboy accepts the condition and promises to leave the freight contract alone. With the deal sealed, the hero lets go of the pretty boy's arm, ending the violent combat. But before leaving, he dashes forward in the blink of an eye, launching himself off the ground. Without a shred of pity, our boy lands a flying kick right in the scummy little director's face. Standing over the fallen body, he shows that the beating wasn't over with just those previous hits. Completely knocked out, the coward receives the finishing blow, flying across the octagon. Screaming, the newbie warns that the rich kid will never have another peaceful day in his life. Grabbing the enemy by the neck, the worker calls and the promise made right from the start. Covered in blood, The villain can only nod his head to avoid another beating. With a swift blow to the punk's arm, our protagonist makes sure the promise will be kept. In a final threat, the suit forbids the aggressor from laying a single finger on the company. Thrown against the canvas, the playboy collapses in a broken heap in the middle of the gym's ring. From a distance, the other fighters are in shock at the terrifying brutality of the scene. On the ground, the coward whimpers in pain as the intimidating figure of the hero rises victoriously. On his way out, the winner tells the others to call an ambulance for the unconscious pretty boy. Very seriously, he leaves a message, warning that a real man always keeps his promises. Dying of fear, the gym owner stammers, asking who the hell that monster is. With an ironic smile, our hero calmly replies that he's just a normal office worker. Turning his back, the boy walks out of the gym, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. The next morning, the sun rises, illuminating the city and marking the start of another day of hard work. Sprawled on his floor at home, the former king of the streets wakes up sore all over, complaining about getting old. While changing his bandages, he realizes the rich kid was a decent fighter and almost made things complicated. Just then, his phone suddenly rings with his coworker calling in a panic first thing in the morning. On the other end of the line, the guy hears the woman demanding an explanation for last night's mess. In a panic, the girl warns him that the scummy director has invaded the office with a gang of thugs. Surprised by the villain's audacity, the newbie hears that the boss has forbidden him from showing up to work today. In the office, the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife as the manager is under heavy pressure from the gang of thugs. Sitting in the boss's chair, the playboy demands they hand over the MC, or he'll double the freight rate. Cynically, the pretty boy says he just wants to give the cheeky drone one last chance to learn his lesson. Full of arrogance, the rich kid proposes to forget the fight if the employee begs forgiveness on his knees. Pointing a dirty finger, the coward wants to see the newbie plead for mercy in front of everyone. Otherwise, the original contract agreement goes down the drain, hurting the entire shipping company. Suddenly, the office door flies open, revealing our hero, out of breath after running a lot. Tired from the run, the worker arrives just in time for the ultimatum, facing the mess they've created. Confused by the chaos, the team quietly comments that the guys look like mobsters from a cheap movie. In an attempt to calm things down, the poor manager begs the villain not to make such absurd demands. Tired of the humiliation, the old-timer closes his eyes, unable to stand the childish nonsense any longer. Not understanding the broken deal, the MC throws the promise made the night before back in the playboy's face. In pure mockery, the pretty boy says he's just there to renegotiate for the good of the business. With a wicked smile, our hero provokes him, asking if the rich kid lost his memory after the knockout. Soon, the gossip spreads through the room as colleagues notice the aggressor's bruised face. Poking at the wound, our boy deduces that the blow to the head made the kid forget the terror he felt. His ego wounded, the villain denies that he wet his pants and tries to maintain his untouchable tough guy pose. Curious and scared, the boss asks the newbie what kind of crazy stuff went down between them at the gym. Filled with hatred, the director changes his mind, canceling the easy chance of a simple kneel. Screaming his head off, he demands that the employee crawl between his legs to be truly forgiven. Without backing down from the bizarre challenge, our MC confirms the scummy deal out loud for everyone to hear. Getting right on the floor, the hero repeats that he'll only do it if the original contract is maintained. No arguments. With a peaceful smile, the boy says he'll trust the rich kid's word again this time. After all, for a businessman, reputation is as valuable as life itself, right? Faced with the subtle provocation, the villain completely loses it, foaming at the mouth with rage. In a fit of uncontrolled anger, the coward raises his hand and slaps the manager hard across the face. By the collar, the pretty boy pulls and assaults the innocent worker in the middle of the meeting room. With his hands on the old man's clothes, the aggressor asks if the old-timer is in a hurry to kick the bucket. In the face of this cowardice, our MC's calm expression disappears, replaced by pure hatred. In his head, the manager's words echo, telling him to keep his head down and swallow his pride. Remembering his colleague's sad advice makes our boy understand the immense pain of being humiliated in old age. With his fists clenched, the ex-bully decides that there are crucial lines that no one can cross. Determined to act, the hero cements in his mind that an honest man's pride should never be trampled on. Without a second thought, our MC lunges forward, placing a firm hand on the entitled thug's shoulder. One of the goons tries to block his path, telling the drone to shut up and stay out of it. Immediately, our boy grabs the goon's hand, squeezing his fingers with monstrous force. With a crack of breaking bones, the former king of the beatdowns rips a deafening scream from the brute. Desperate at his ally's pain, the scummy director orders all his goons to kill the employee on the spot. Terrified by the violence, the office team panics as the fight explodes in the hall. With a killer look in his eye, our hero doesn't even blink at the enemies running toward him. Screaming, the five thugs charge the newbie, ready to turn him into dust. Before they clash, a female voice echoes through the room, asking who plans on crushing whom here. At the arrival of the mysterious woman, the little director freezes in place, instantly breaking into a cold sweat. In shock, the entire team recognizes the imposing figure who just stepped into the company. Full of class, the real boss of the operation arrives, accompanied by security guards and a whole lot of attitude. Without her sunglasses, the powerful director Baekjean mocks the invading pretty boy's lack of manners. Spitting facts, she states that the director's father built the shipping company with a lot of sweat and hard work. However, with a sharp smile, the socialite finishes the conversation by stating that the old man failed miserably in raising his cub. Boiling with rage, the pretty boy demands to know what the insolent director just said. Without backing down, the powerful woman confesses that she only put up with his antics out of pure respect for the company's late president. In a sharp tone, she throws it in the kid's face that character and competence apparently aren't genetic. Pulling out a tablet, the big boss shoves all the evidence and videos of his parties and abuses in the coward's face. Pushed against a wall, the little director grinds his teeth and asks if this is some kind of blackmail. With a devilish smile, the socialite retorts that he was the one who started with the threats. Feeling the blow, the villain's gaze locks, realizing his little power game has completely crumbled. Pulling up a chair, the businesswoman sits comfortably and questions her opponent's dumb logic. Straight to the point, she reminds him that if the ships are delayed, his shipping company also takes a colossal loss. Mocking the situation, the director asks if the boy really thinks he has the clout to try such a weak bluff. Digging his own grave, the jerk asks if her company wants to cancel the partnership for good. With total disdain, she gives the punk the freedom to interpret the situation however his tiny little head wants. Full of resentment, the playboy gets up, promising that the firm will pay dearly for this emotional decision. Turning his back, the loser leaves, dragging his goons back to the hole they crawled out of. Right after the door closes, the big boss focuses on her own team, ready to clean up the internal mess. In a serious tone, the boss calls our hero and the manager for a private chat in the director's office. Outside, the atmosphere becomes tense, with everyone imagining the monumental scolding that's about to come. Already on the couch in the luxurious office, the duo shrinks, expecting the worst from the relentless executive. Without beating around the bush, the socialite asks to lay the facts on the table and understand the root of this giant mess. Crossing her arms, she asks if the newbie really went after the Mujin director and laid the smackdown on him. With a straight face, our MC tries to explain, saying it was just a friendly sparring session. Completely shocked, the boss almost faints upon discovering that the bloody fight actually happened. Cutting through the nonsense, the boss reveals that their little game delayed a motorcycle export, creating a multi-million-dollar deficit. Desperate, the old-timer bows his head, taking the blame for not reining in his crazy subordinate. Almost in tears, the old man laments that the boy should have just played dumb instead of making the whole mess worse. Hearing the boss's sincere regret, the hero feels the weight of his own actions on his conscience. In his mind, the old man's advice about the cruel fate of swallowing one's pride for a paycheck echoes. Clenching his fist tightly, the boy decides he's not going to let the old timer take the fall for his mistakes. Just then, the director repeats the old corporate saying that there's no real loss if the merchandise hasn't been sold. Flashing a sly grin, the former king of the streets recognizes the same BS he heard from the crypto playboys. Full of attitude, the newbie stands up and confirms that the bikes are still in stock, waiting for a buyer. With cold composure, he states that the huge deficit is just an imaginary loss on paper for now. Pounding his chest, the boy takes full responsibility, promising to move the merchandise his own way. Amused by his audacity, the big boss gives a smirk, liking the drone's absurd courage. For the first time, the socialite admits to herself that the ex-bully is much crazier than she ever imagined. Back at their desks, the gossipy colleague tells the team about the newbie's absurd promise. A nervous wreck, the manager questions how 3 drones are going to sell 500 motorcycles in just 1 week. Trying to cheer everyone up, the girl reminds them they are born salespeople, capable of selling sand in a desert. In a sad tone, the old man confesses he feels useless for having made the situation worse with his own passivity. Breaking the heavy mood, the woman blurts out that she thought our protagonist's punch was the coolest thing in the world. Caught by surprise, the old-timer's eyes go wide, unable to believe someone finally praised that crazy move. Letting out a relieved laugh, the boss agrees, saying the two of them shouldn't have picked his fight like that. Honest to the end, the colleague admits she couldn't stand seeing the pretty boy humiliate people for no reason anymore. Out of nowhere, the director appears behind them, surprised by the group's chaotic energy and blind confidence. Pointing her finger, the powerful woman decrees that from this day forward, the 3 of them form the company's newest task force. At the end of the workday, the colleague celebrates, saying that now they finally feel like a real squad. With a serene smile, the manager thanks the big guy from the bottom of his heart, for everything he did for him. Caught off guard, the former king of the streets blinks, not quite understanding the boss's sudden gratitude. Drinking a beer at the bar, the old man confesses it's been years since someone stood up for him at work. Hearing him open up, the girl is touched, realizing just how much her older colleague had been suffering in silence at the firm. Filled with pride, the old-timer repeats how happy he was to see the suit defending the team with pure rage. Laughing, the veteran admits it was completely irresponsible, but seeing the little director on the floor was cleansing for the soul. Listening to the praise, our hero feels a different kind of peace, realizing his strength was finally used for something good. Breaking the ice, the friend jokes about the villain wetting himself, and even the boss promises to punch the guy next time. The night advances over the buildings, marking the end of a tiring day filled with small victories. Back at headquarters, the director observes the city from her window, admitting she's very curious about the young man's situation. With a sharp gaze, the socialite places her bets, wanting to see what the former Underworld legend is capable of. The next morning, chaos reigns in the office, with the entire team glued to their phones, calling everyone. Fingers on keyboards and phones to their ears, they fire off contacts to all four corners, trying to unload the inventory. Tossing her pen on the desk, the woman sighs in frustration, reporting that the foreign buyers' schedules are completely booked. In a joking tone, the boss grumbles that the important thing is they didn't get fired on the first day. Looking around, the girl notices an empty chair and asks where the heck the big guy disappeared to in the middle of this hell. Checking his messages, the old man says the guy left early with a bizarre plan to sell everything. Frowning, the friend has no idea what kind of shady contact her colleague managed to pull out of thin air. Walking through the outskirts of town, our MC laments that the only rich guy addicted to motorcycles he knows is a piece of trash. On the street, he bumps into the crypto suit, who immediately starts crying, begging to become his partner in crime. Cold as ice, the hero ignores the theatrics and says he only called the kid because he desperately needs his money right now. Completely misunderstanding, the fanboy swears eternal loyalty, promising to give his life for his new boss. Standing in front of a grim warehouse, the two stare at a creepy junkyard in the middle of nowhere. Inside the place, the atmosphere is heavy, with a gang of thugs dismantling parts and staring down the visitors. Smoke and the sound of saws dominate the environment, showing that this place is not for the faint of heart. Surrounded by hostile glares, the two suits stand out completely in the middle of the heavy-duty thugs. Sitting on a crate, the warehouse boss chews on a piece of meat, while analyzing the outsiders with boredom. Wiping his mouth, the mobster bluntly asks what the suits came to sell in this dump. Trembling with fear, the rich fanboy whispers, asking who these guys are, and the MC confesses he has no idea. Devouring his food, the warehouse leader ironically explains that his clientele is made up of illegal immigrants. Swallowing hard, the rich kid whispers in fear that those motorcycles without license plates on the streets belong to these guys. With a wicked smile, our hero says that selling to outlaws sounds like a wonderful and profitable plan. Desperate, the fanboy grabs the MC's arm, trying to stop him from closing a deal with the mobsters there. But before anything else, the gang leader raises a wrench, asking them to wait a moment. Straight to the point, our boy points to the yard and informs him that he has 500 motorcycles identical to that model to sell. Upon hearing the absurd number, the boss lets out a loud laugh, showing his rotten teeth and finding the proposal incredible. Filled with greed, the criminal slams the table and states in no uncertain terms that he'll buy the entire stock. Explaining the logic of crime, he reveals that when the economy crashes, his black market business skyrockets. Getting closer, the mobster scoffs, saying that today's kids hate responsibility and prefer dirty work. Taking a step back, the rich kid refuses the offer to join the life of crime, stammering that he already has enough money. Realizing the trap, the suit pulls his boss's arm, quietly warning him that they're not selling anything. Confused, our hero questions why the pretty boy wants to cancel the sale when they desperately need to unload the bikes. Staring down the thugs, the young investor states firmly that he's not trash to be associated with a shady criminal syndicate. Firm in his decision, he demands respect for the Samjin name, saying the company would never get involved with lowlifes. Trying to calm the situation, the newbie asks if the rich kid really wants to back out after setting up the whole meeting. Worried about the firm's image, the pretty boy begs the hero to think carefully about the consequences of that dirty deal. With a thud, the criminal boss stands up from his chair, frustrated with the suit's change of heart. Rubbing his hands together, he reminds the outsiders that in the business world, time is money. With wide eyes, the thug demands heavy financial compensation for making him lose his patience. Maintaining his composure, the MC suggests they both forget the misunderstanding and part ways amicably, no stress. However, all around them, the entire troop of criminals begins to close in, with iron bars in their hands. Noticing the danger, the hero tells the suit fanboy to hide behind him before the brawl breaks out. Completely blind with rage, the mob boss bellows, ordering his men to attack the meddling kids. Suddenly, a brutal flying kick hits the back of one of the goons, taking everyone in the junkyard by surprise. Full of adrenaline, the rich fanboy of the living legend yells at the crowd that they have no idea who they're messing with. Thinking the kid is crazy, the thugs pause for a second, not understanding his burst of confidence in the face of death. But to the pretty boy's despair, our hero jumps out the warehouse window, fleeing the fight like a scared rat. Furious with the betrayal, the mob boss orders his horde of goons to chase and kill the cowardly employee outside. Jumping after his boss, the fanboy cries, asking why they didn't just sell the bikes and avoid the mess. Pounding the pavement, our MC runs desperately to escape the crowd of enraged criminals. Out of breath, the rich kid stumbles on the rocks, questioning where the heck the hero is running so fast. Right behind them, the horde of armed thugs destroys everything in their path, eager to crush the meddling duo. Yelling orders, the mafia boss demands they break the runaway suit's legs with their clubs. Nearby, the hero approaches the motorcycle they used to get there and scoffs that a good salesman never abandons his merchandise. In a quick reflex, the criminal leader orders no one to touch the luxury motorcycle parked in the warehouse. In fractions of a second, our protagonist leaps through the air, landing a perfect flying kick right in one of the goons' faces. The brutal impact sends the thug flying, knocking over boxes and breaking tools across the junkyard floor. Shocked by the acrobatics, the suit fanboy watches with his mouth open as the former king of the streets returns to action in a single blow. Immediately, the boy pulls out the motorcycle key and starts the engine in the blink of an eye, getting out of there fast. With the bike running, the MC blames the mob boss, saying that now they're even for the whole mess. Flying through the streets, the rich kid confesses with relief that he thought his boss was going to leave him to die back in the den. Driving steadily, the hero assures him he would never abandon a partner, and that loyalty is his code. But in a joking tone, he immediately admits he ran because he was too lazy to beat up so many people for free. Stopped at a red light, the duo takes a deep breath, trying to calm the adrenaline from the crazy escape that just happened. Observing the traffic, our MC admires the absurd number of delivery drivers weaving through cars left and right. Behind him on the bike, his office colleague holds on tight, clutching paperwork in the middle of a crazy workday. Discussing money, she reveals that the delivery driver routine brings in a hefty sum at the end of the month for those who are up for it. Teasing the suit, the girl suggests he should switch professions, since he's an excellent getaway driver. Shocked by the figures, the hero stammers, repeating the multi-million-dollar amount, unable to believe the delivery driver's profits. Back at Samjin headquarters, the atmosphere in the meeting room is heavier than a tombstone at night. Exhausted, the entire team reviews documents and tries to find a miracle to sell that stuck inventory of motorcycles. Crossing her arms, the director admits that the Korean market is already flooded with vehicles, and no one wants to pay full price. Nervous, the manager considers the crazy idea of them handling the deliveries themselves, since no one is buying the vehicles. Trying to resolve the trauma, the colleague suggests apologizing to the pretty boy from the shipping company and begging for a new deal. Suddenly, the room door opens, and the adventurous duo returns from their resounding failure at the junkyard. Tired, the MC throws himself into an office chair, admitting temporary defeat in his hunt for dangerous buyers. With a fixed gaze, the boss asks if there's really no other way to save that cursed batch. A deathly silence fills the room, with all the employees completely hopeless about solving the crisis. Breaking the silence, our hero lifts his head and proposes an insane idea about the forgotten motorcycles. In a flash of genius, the MC states out loud that they already have the answer parked in their own lot. Recalling his chat with his colleague in traffic, he focuses on the absurd revenue of the app-based delivery market. Throwing numbers on the table, he explains that freight agencies alone move trillions in the national economy every year. Impressing the bosses, he mentions that almost half of that colossal sum circulates just in major cities like Seoul. Based on the gigantic fleet that dominates the streets, he states with certainty that those numbers are no exaggeration. Holding his helmet firmly, the boy declares that the company should use the vehicles to make money instead of just selling them. Completely shocked, the management team hears that profits could jump from 1 billion to 10 times more in an instant. Worried about the audacity, the older manager warns that launching a new business model out of the blue is far too dangerous. Frowning, the colleague questions if that crazy plan is just a childish joke from the stressed-out newbie. Focused on victory, our protagonist remembers the mafia of illegal immigrants dominating the city's shady logistics. With a determined look, he reveals that he has already researched market trends and found the ideal partners for the scheme. Placing the helmet on the table with force, the hero reminds the director that she told them to fight until the last resort. Flashing a legendary smile, the former king of the streets declares that the real war for Samjin's profits is just beginning. Contemplating the city through the night window, the boss silently reflects on the rebellious employee's high-stakes gamble. Analyzing the little director from Mujin, she concludes that behind that hatred lies a greedy man incapable of letting go. Far away in a luxurious office, the pretty boy reflects on the empty president's throne at the shipping company. With the image of the Samjin director in his head, the villain realizes she's playing hardball to secure her own top spot. Looking at the city lights, the suit wonders who within his own company might be plotting to take the woman down. Meanwhile, on another secret call, the company's real traitor hears that his superior is losing patience with the delay. Facing the window, the informant tries to calm things down, warning that bad things are already starting to bubble to the surface. On the street, our protagonist waits for his unusual partner, knowing the director won't accept any failures in this new project. Suddenly, a guy dressed in extravagant clothes and flashy glasses approaches the boy in the middle of the street. All smiles. The rich fanboy of the legend officially introduces himself, stating that he has become a business consultant. Walking together down the sidewalk, the hero is surprised to see that the pretty boy has contacts everywhere. Amused by the situation, the suit admits that the spoiled kid might actually be of some real use to the team. Nudging the fanboy's shoulder, the MC tells him to show up at the office tomorrow dressed like a real professional. The next morning, the sun shines on the Samjin building, signaling the time for the most important meeting of the month. Hurried footsteps echo down the hall, showing the team's anxiety to meet the so-called logistics genius. Surrounded by his colleagues, the former king of the streets warns that everyone's jaws are going to drop when they see the delivery expert. With a mischievous grin, he guarantees that the mysterious consultant's hidden talent will leave the director speechless. Crossing her arms impatiently, the big boss asks if the important visitor is already on his way to the room. Hearing footsteps at the door, the older manager announces that the expert has just arrived, right on time. Opening the door with a confident smile, the MC introduces the team's newest operations consultant. But upon entering the room, the rich kid appears dressed like a mobster, with a pinstrip suit and an open shirt. Full of swagger, the pretty boy tries to give a charming, "Good afternoon," while the entire team is left speechless. With her face in her hands, the colleague stammers, asking what kind of comical figure this flashy guy is. Winking through his sunglasses, the rich kid flashes a charming smile, trying to make a good impression. Furious with the clown show, the hero grabs the kid's jacket, yelling to understand why he came dressed as a mobster. Trying to break free, the pretty boy grumbles that he just followed the advice not to wear clothes that would make him look like a fool. Shocked by the little show, the director stands up from her chair, shooting daggers at the hero with her eyes and demanding an urgent explanation. Awkwardly, the MC lets go of his friend's collar and confirms that this clown is indeed the promised consultant. Sighing heavily, the big boss asks if this is some kind of very bad joke from the employee. Stepping in front, the ex-bully swears that behind that bizarre look is a guy who knows his stuff. Rubbing her temples, the powerful woman complains about the workload and the lack of professionalism from the comedy duo. Even though she's beyond pissed, she decides to swallow her anger and tells the consultant to sit down and prove if he's fit for the mission or not. Swallowing her pride, the big boss mutters that leaving the guy outside would be an unwelcome rudeness in the corporation. Trying to keep the peace, the older manager defends the newbie, claiming there must be a good hidden reason for his choice. Nodding, the old man organizes the meeting's paperwork, ready to start the heavy work. Very shyly, the colleague stammers, asking if she can call the fake mobster by his first name to make things easier. Sitting at the head of the table, the director officially declares the start of the strategic discussion on the freight operation. Focused on her tablet, she explains that to build a profitable agency, they need to focus on the profits from the delivery fees. Without missing a beat, she suggests charging a daily rental fee for the motorcycles as the company's main source of clean income. Noticing the boss's naivety, the rich kid raises a finger, completely disagreeing with her by the book reasoning. Challenging corporate logic, the pretty boy warns that recruiting regular drivers won't make any real money. Confused, the team listens attentively as the consultant cites examples of veteran delivery drivers who work miracles on the streets. Straight to the point, he teaches that the big money is in the hands of professional riders, not weekend amateurs. With a serious face, he warns that the biggest problem on the streets is the huge number of reckless bikers. In his memories, images of delivery guys running red lights, hitting cars, and getting into fights with customers on the road appear. Bluntly, the kid states that the rule of shoddy agencies is to ignore accidents and leave the driver to deal with the mess. Looking the director in the eyes, he asks if she really has the stomach to deal with a gang of furious delinquents. At a traditional restaurant, far from the hustle and bustle, the sun sets, marking the end of another tense day. Pouring a drink into a small porcelain cup, a gruff voice proposes a toast to partnership and mutual growth. Grabbing the sake bottle, the rival director from the shipping company celebrates the union of interests between the two companies. Smiling, the trader from Samjin confirms that the hidden ambitions of both sides have finally crossed paths. Emotionless, the little director from Mujin retorts dryly that in business, there's no such thing as childhood friendship. Taking a quick sip, the cruel pretty boy declares that their hearts don't need to beat to the same rhythm. Observing the beautiful Asian landscape, the playboy confesses that he hates getting involved in other people's family squabbles. Bowing slightly, the elderly informant thanks the young man for the excellent show he put on during the outburst at Samjin. Putting his cup down, the trader smiles with satisfaction, stating that the show was worth it to delay the motorcycle export. Full of greed, the old man guarantees to cover the losses and hand over the logistics contracts to the playboy as a gift. In return, the sadistic suit would gain a monopoly on the routes and the guarantee of the coveted president's throne. Amused by his arrogance, the old man highlights the strength of the founding family's name, claiming to be just a pawn in the game. Clinking their cups, the corrupt pact is sealed with a metallic sound echoing in the silent restaurant room. Suddenly, the old man lets out a wicked laugh, revealing some hot gossip about his own boss's crazy plans. Filling the glass again, he shares the news of the improvised task force assembled to save the motorcycle stock. Hearing about his rival director's madness, the playboy lets out a genuine laugh, thinking it's the stupidest idea of the century. Laughing uncontrollably, the villain holds his stomach, laughing at the corporate naivety of thinking the streets are a playground. Back at the meeting, the pretty boy consultant scribbles on the board and warns that the business isn't just about revving an old bike. Tapping his pen on the board, he defines the parallel logistics market as a true open-air asylum. Reinforcing the mockery, the Mujin director reflects in the restaurant that the asphalt is dominated by hungry dogs and thugs. Full of swagger, the consultant warns the boss that the veterans won't let new drones steal their market so easily. Chugging his drink, the rival playboy scoffs at the difficulty of recruiting riders amidst so much dirty competition. Seriously, the informant points out that whoever is left on the street is either a teenager without a license or some crazy person looking for a quick gig. Analyzing the situation, the old man states that the director doesn't have a firm enough hand to control a rogue horde of bikers. Smiling perversely, the pretty boy says that street work is too violent for suits raised in luxury. In the meeting room, the team feels the weight of the truth. Knowing they don't have the cruel experience necessary for the operation, tapping his chest, the consultant states that dealing with gang fights and controlling territory requires someone tough. Silently, the boss stares at the board, processing that success depends on someone capable of putting real lowlifes in their place. Shrugging, the playboy in the restaurant bets all his chips on the socialite's certain defeat in this new, useless venture. But remembering the monster who almost tore his head off, the little director admits with a tremble that the MC would be the only one capable of it. The next morning, the sun rises, illuminating the big city's commercial buildings early on. Right in the center, a gigantic crowd is already gathering in the main square, waiting for something. In the middle of the crowd, the buzz is going strong, with dozens of tough-looking guys getting impatient. Completely without manners, a tattooed brute yells, demanding to know what time the event will start. Fed up with life, another thug confesses he's only there because he lost all his money on bets the night before. Hiding in a corner, the rich consultant confesses to the hero that he spent the entire night calling everyone he knew. In the pretty boy's memory, the suit demanded that he gather as many people as possible at the location. Surprised by the rush at the time, the partner complained about the tight deadline, but swallowed his complaints and accepted the mission. Full of swagger, the fanboy saluted and promised to drag even his distant relative to the square. Back in the present, our protagonist tests the megaphone, ready to bring order to this madhouse. In a deafening shout, the former king of the streets tells everyone to shut up and listen to the rules. With the posture of a boss, he thanks the horde of jobless people for showing up so early in the morning. Out of nowhere, an entitled bald guy interrupts the speech, demanding to know if the ad's promise is for real. Straight to the point, the guy asks if they're really going to get free motorcycles to work with. Flashing a villainous smile, our hero confirms that the offer is 100% true. Through the megaphone, the suit guarantees that any hired delivery driver won't pay a single cent in rent. Shocked by the sweet deal, the crowd murmurs, thinking the overly generous offer must be some kind of dirty scam. Without missing a beat, the MC announces there are just 2 basic rules to get the equipment. With a finger raised, he mentions legal registration and warns that the second rule is to pass a very tough interview. Full of style, the hero loosens his tie and rolls up his shirt sleeves, preparing to break a sweat. Facing the delinquents head-on, he reveals that the so-called interview is a brutal arm wrestling competition. Fired up by the crazy idea, the thugs cheer, thinking winning the motorcycle will be the easiest thing in the world. In the middle of the commotion, the brutes start pushing each other, wanting to be the first in line to challenge the newbie. Quickly, the square turns into absolute chaos, with the thugs fighting for space by yelling and shoving. Suddenly, the sound of a powerful engine rips through the air, and a heavy motorcycle screeches to a halt at the scene. Far from the chaos, a tattooed giant takes off his helmet and scoffs at the circus set up in the middle of the street. Chewing gum, the gorilla decides it's time to teach these cocky newbies some discipline. Boiling with rage, the intruder wants to find out which idiot had the nerve to poach riders in his territory. Meanwhile, the rich consultant desperately tries to get the wild crowd into a single file line. Without asking for permission, the tattooed giant pushes through, clearing a path with brute force. Annoyed by the nerve, the pretty boy complains to the giant for cutting the line so shamelessly, without any respect. Looking down, the brute flashes an intimidating smile that would send shivers down anyone's spine. Scared to death, the rich kid trips over his own feet and falls on his butt, nearly having a heart attack right there. Cowling for his boss, the consultant watches the intruder stop right in front of the arm wrestling table. With a grim look, the gorilla faces our protagonist, asking if he's the clown running this event. Letting out a bizarre laugh, the thug mocks the suit's courage for setting up this whole stall. In the crowd, the delivery drivers recognize the monster Huang Junju and start sweating bullets in fear. Covered in scars, the psycho's arm proves he's not there to play games or make small talk. Desperate, the pretty boy partner crawls away from the mess, afraid of being turned into pulp in the giant's hands. Calling the hero a suit, the brute asks if he really thought he could steal delivery drivers that easily. Oozing malice, the intruder offers some special help to finish the interviews with his fists. Maintaining absolute calm, our MC lets out a smirk, showing he was already expecting this visit. Without a tremor, the boy calls the giant by his full name, shocking his opponent immediately, hitting him where it hurts. The hero reveals that the guy is 24 years old and was kicked out of professional wrestling. Completing the criminal record, he throws it in his face that the gorilla was banned for cowardly beating up rookies. Letting out a monstrous laugh, the brute congratulates the newbie for doing his homework properly. A second later, the smile vanishes, and he tells the hero to get lost if he doesn't want his skull caved in on the asphalt. Hiding behind the table, the rich kid whispers, asking if his boss is sure about the crazy thing he's doing. In a total panic, the consultant warns that this psycho is the most influential and dangerous guy in the entire region. Firm in his stance, the former king of the streets replies that's exactly why they need to recruit the beast. Cowling the giant to the table, our boy proposes a simple and direct bet to settle the whole thing. Surprised by the absurd audacity, the brute asks what the prize is for the suit's little game. Slamming his elbow on the table, the hero challenges the big guy to a decisive arm wrestling match in front of everyone. Explaining the rules, the MC promises to hand over all the motorcycles for free to the intruder if he loses the contest. But with a dark look, he decrees that if he wins, the giant becomes an official employee of the Samjin Shipping Company. Thinking the whole thing is a ridiculous joke, the gorilla accepts the verbal contract, warning that things are about to get very ugly. Grabbing the hero's hand, the brute applies immense force, bellowing like a caged wild animal. Bored by his opponent's pathetic strength, our MC even lets out a yawn in the middle of the intense contest. Sweating buckets, the intruder is in shock when he realizes the suit's arm isn't moving a single millimeter. Desperate on the inside, the monster realizes he'll become a laughingstock if he loses to a clean cut guy in a suit. Watching from afar, the crowd murmurs, believing the giant is just toying with him and giving false hope. Tired of the theatrics, our hero announces he's going to end the contest soon because the line of candidates is huge. In a pure survival instinct, the big guy begs for a second's pause, but it's too late. Completely shocked, the thugs in the audience's eyes go wide, watching the impossible happen before them. With veins popping from his face, the gorilla feels his own arm being crushed by the employee's absurd strength. With a violent slam, the giant's hand is driven into the wooden table, marking a total and humiliating defeat. Paralyzed, the brute stares at his own fallen hand, unable to process the steamrolling he just suffered. Squeezing his fingers even tighter, the hero warns that the gorilla's pride and power will crumble with the rumors. Trying to back out, the loser stammers, yelling that he doesn't have to honor a stupid verbal promise. Fixing him with a demonic stare, the suit reminds the brute that a deal is a deal in the underworld, crushing his opponent's bones. The boy asks what happens to the scum who break the rules of the street. Starting his moral lesson, the MC explains the brutal power hierarchy that exists within the city's gangs. With a sadistic smile, he mentions the rare legends who command entire armies with just the strength of their fists. Revealing his true dark aura, the former king of the streets calls himself the monstrous anomaly at the top of the food chain. Filled with murderous rage, the hero challenges the loser to break his word if he wants to be buried alive right there. Pinned to the table, the giant stammers in fear, asking what the heck he needs to do to get out of this mess alive. With a mocking smile, the hero locks his eyes on the loser, ready to decree the gorilla's fate. Letting go of the brute's hand, the MC says the mission is simple and direct, no messing around. In the audience, the horde of bikers cheers wildly, thinking the famous fighter won the contest. Utterly confused, the giant lifts his head, not understanding why the newbie faked his defeat so blatantly. Adjusting his tie, our hero thanks the thug for his participation, knowing it was a difficult decision for him. Maintaining his intimidating posture, the boy demands that the new employee dedicate his entire life to working at Samjin. Shaking hands in a fake alliance, the gorilla mentally admits he's been hooked by a first-class lunatic. Fired up by their idol's presence, the delivery drivers in the square raise their hands, wanting to join the firm too. Focused on the recruitment success, the former king of the streets smiles, relieved to have tamed the fiercest dog on the asphalt. Back at the commercial building, it's a party atmosphere, with the entire team celebrating the boy's miraculous achievement. Laughing his head off, the veteran manager can't believe the crazy plan to recruit thugs actually worked. With a clipboard in hand, the boss confesses he was terrified the event would end in a bloodbath. Nearby, the colleague sighs in relief, confirming that all 500 motorcycles arrived at the warehouse without a single scratch. Excited, the old man jokes that arranging the storage was the least he could do after everything the boy did for him. Walking to the cafeteria, the manager remembers that the storage space is only guaranteed until next month. Satisfied with the teamwork, the old man suggests a big lunch to celebrate the day's victory. Breaking the cheerful mood, the colleague whispers with worry if they aren't celebrating too early. Anguished, the woman warns that setting up an entire agency in a month is pure madness, and they lack the data for the operation. Looking through the windows, the employees observe the immense fleet of motorcycles lined up, waiting for action. Locked in the elevator, the veteran trader reflects that the director's morale was already in the gutter even before the project began. Cleaning his glasses, the old man concludes that if the woman fails now, the board of shareholders will have her neck. Alone in the hallway, the boss walks with her head held high, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. In the metal's reflection, the boss hears the echo of the trader's words, warning that she's taking a fatal risk. With a firm hand on the doorknob, the powerful woman takes a deep breath, ready to face the snakes in the meeting room. Right at the office door, the director bumps into the detestable figure of the company's corrupt informant. In the middle of the lobby, an awkward silence dominates the atmosphere, marking the meeting of two declared enemies. Full of cynicism, the Olden comments on the gossip that Team 3 is trying to save the stranded motorcycles. Maintaining his falsehood, he wishes them luck in the new business and pretends to root for his rival's success. Blatantly sucking up, the trader says the new manager is a perfect copy of her relentless efficiency. With a shark-like smile, the informant declares that the director doesn't accept failure and always delivers results. Patting him on the shoulder, the boss plays along and compliments the old man's impressive vitality for his age. Seething on the inside, the trader thanks her for the fake compliment and tells the woman to enjoy her lunch while she can. Later, in a fancy restaurant with closed doors, the conspiracy advances to the next phase of the coup. Serving food, the pretty boy director comments that the rival team managed to find a temporary warehouse out of sheer luck. Mocking with his mouth full, he states that the director will never build a delivery empire in just 1 month. Chewing his meat, the old trader laughs, affirming that the crazy project will collapse on its own without any help. With gullish pride, the informant reveals that he's placed his own stooge to watch his rival's every move. Full of flattery, the lackey thanks him for the trust and promises to sink Team 3's ship. Staring at the restaurant's aquarium, the old man compares his helper to a fat pufferfish, full of deadly venom on the inside. Without looking away, the trader confesses that lately, he sees no real use for that yes man. Sipping his tea, the lackey questions if his boss is 100% sure of the enemy director's failure. Tapping his chopsticks, the old man asks why he should wait a month when he can end this farce right now. In the cup's reflection, the image of Team 3 celebrating appears in the envious old man's mind. With his face shrouded in shadows, the informant proposes to bring forward their ruin and crush the competition immediately. Back at headquarters, the older manager is still laughing in awe at the absolute success of the recruitment in the square. Humble as always, our hero credits divine luck, but the team isn't buying that lame excuse. On the other side of the table, the rich consultant recounts with wonder how his boss tamed the monster of the asphalt. Laughing at the lie, the big tattooed guy puts on his security uniform, swearing that the riders are behaving. Tired of the chatter, our MC covers the pretty boy's mouth to prevent the secret of the fight from leaking in the office. At the head of the table, the colleague reports that the entire stock is safe in the rented warehouse until the end of the month. Smiling with satisfaction, the director congratulates the squad for their hard work and asks for just a little more focus. Thinking the war is over, the consultant laughs, saying that with the big guy on the team, everything will be perfect. In a sudden flash, the entire team freezes and stares wide-eyed at the talkative kid. Frightened, the colleague warns that in the corporate world, the word perfect attracts all the black in the universe at once. In her mind, images of chaotic shifts and hospitals invade her thoughts, proving the word's curse. Suddenly, the manager's phone rings frantically, breaking the calm and heralding imminent doom. Pale with shock, the old man announces that the team has been kicked out of the warehouse and has to get the bikes out of there right now. Checking his email, the boss of the other team shamelessly informs them that their export shipment has been moved up. Hanging up the phone, the old man apologizes profusely, feeling the bitter taste of a low blow in business. Furious with the backstabbing, the manager understands that Director Han's team took their space on purpose. Pursing her lips, the director lets out a nervous smile, confirming the suspicion of internal betrayal. Focusing her hatred, the boss realizes that their rivals aren't playing around and want blood in the meeting room. Clinging to the phone, the colleague begs for any empty hole in the city to stash the lost motorcycles. Slamming her hands on the table, the girl breaks down in despair, screaming that there are no warehouses left to rent at the last minute. Sighing heavily, the woman laments that the newbie's crazy idea was dead on arrival from the start. Seeing his friend's sadness, our hero stands up with a bright look in his eyes and a confident smile on his face. Quoting the director's words, he reminds them that the genius solution is always hidden in the midst of absolute chaos. Retorting the catchphrase, the colleague jokes, wanting to know which corporate manual he got all that wisdom from. Scratching the back of his neck, the former king of the streets hides his embarrassment, claiming he heard it from an old acquaintance on a night out. Regaining her seriousness, the girl apologizes for her fatalistic outburst and swears not to throw in the towel so soon. In a warm tone, she states that the team has become a family, and no one is going to back down from this cowardly sabotage. Pointing to the screen, our MC agrees, saying that their greatest strength is still sweating it out at the docks. Far from the office, under the hot sun, the veteran manager carries boxes with a smile on his face despite the exhaustion. Holding the old man's arm, a tattooed delivery driver tells him not to lift heavy things and to leave the dirty work to the young guys. With a smile on his face, the older manager helps carry the heavy boxes into the temporary warehouse. Genuinely impressed, the other workers watch the suit's effort in the heavy labor. In a show of partnership, the tattooed giant hands the old man a can of coffee to rest a bit. Laughing, the brute admits that for an office rat, the old man is actually pretty nimble. In a teasing mood, the boss replies that his box-carrying skills are still sharp. From a distance, the warehouse owner watches the scene in silence with an unreadable expression on his face. In a tone of gratitude, the team bows, asking the guy to let them know if more space becomes available. Suddenly, someone approaches, drawing the group's attention in the middle of the yard. Calmly, the warehouse owner reveals that a textile company shipment was delayed, and there might be an opening. With a quick shout, the bearded guy raises his hand to give one last message to the group. Happy with the kindness, the warehouse owner thanks them for the can of coffee he received earlier. Outside, the sun shines brightly, illuminating the warehouse and bringing a drop of hope to the team. Inside the dark space, our protagonist runs in yelling, looking for the boss. Out of breath, the hero questions why the old man is stalling when they've already found an ideal space for the bikes. Confused by the sudden rush, the manager asks if the newbie finally closed the deal with the person in charge. At that exact moment, the disgusting figure of the rival manager from the other team appears out of nowhere in front of them. With a contract dangling in the air, the traitor displays a victorious smile on his face to Team 3. Not understanding a thing, our boss asks what the heck his rival is doing there in that warehouse. Pure mockery, the scumbag replies that the Mujin shipping company asked them to take the spot first. At the height of his arrogance, the rival tells the old man to control his entitled subordinates better. Tapping the document against the old man's chest, the traitor throws it in his face that he bet on the wrong team. Face to face with the poor guy, the villain whispers that the boss should have chosen the winning side from the beginning. Full of metaphors, the scumbag explains that in the business world, survival is for those who know which ladder to climb. Humiliated, the manager swallows hard, realizing he's been monumentally backstabbed by his own company. Far away in a luxurious office, the traitor reports the success of the warehouse theft to Director Han. With a teacup in hand, the corrupt boss praises his lackey's speed in closing the additional contract. In full brown-nosing style, the slimy manager admits that his boss's strategic vision is frighteningly good. Right after placing the cup on the table, the director reveals the mission to divert the entire cargo volume to the Mujin shipping company. Caught by surprise, the lackey's eyes go wide, not understanding his boss's obsession with the partner company. With a devilish smile, the director lies, saying he does it all just for the good of his own company. A bit confused, the rival manager comments that the boss already has more than enough power in the construction company to worry about freight. Jumping from his chair, the lackey bows, swearing blind loyalty and asking to continue learning from the master. With a hand on his subordinate's shoulder, the corrupt boss lets out a sinister laugh, approving his obedience. With a psychopathic look, the director warns that to do big things, you have to bury the small noises. Outside, night covers the company headquarters while Team 3 tries to digest the dirty trick they just fell for. In the meeting room, the colleague freaks out, not understanding how employees of the same corporation could sabotage each other like this. With guilt weighing him down, our MC lowers his head, thinking he made everything worse when he decided to play hero. Breaking the silence, the director takes full blame for the relentless persecution against the team. Without beating around the bush, she spills the dirty secret that behind Director Han is the group president's second wife. Straight to the point, the boss reveals that the stepmother's goal is to wipe the legitimate Harris off the map. Cold and calculating, the boss explains that the Mujin shipping company was never going to accept the freight rate increase. In reality, the corrupt director promised to freeze the motorcycle exports in exchange for absurd favors. Full of schemes, the shipping company found the trader's proposal much sweeter and more profitable for their business. To make matters worse, the fighter Pretty Boy is going through a trial by fire to inherit the presidency of Mujin. Thirsty for absolute power, the arrogant playboy is willing to use any dirty method to prove his worth. With the pressure on, the company is demanding that the heir bring in absurd profits to prove himself worthy. In a low voice, our hero repeats the words about bigger profits and impossible results in his mind. Annoyed by the corporate gossip, the rich consultant complains about the childishness of the bunch of suits. Full of complaints, the blonde says that selling motorcycles on the street is too dirty and humiliating a job for him. In a flash of genius, the MC's eyes go wide, and he tells the kid to repeat what he just grumbled. Completely terrified, the pretty boy stammers, not knowing what he said that was so important in his moment of anger. Leaping from his chair, our boy proposes a suicide play to the desperate team director. With a hand on his chest, he explains that the root of the whole problem was the blocked export route. Directly, he states that the only way out is to push the 500 stranded motorcycles onto someone else. Shocked by the audacity, the boss warns that no one in the market will pay full price for that entire fleet. With a demonic smile, the hero declares that they will sell the entire batch to yesterday's enemy, without fail. In another scene, the heavy sound of punches echoes in a dark and empty training gym. Filled with hatred, the little director from Mujin pummels a punching bag with terrifying force. Due to the violence of the blows, the sandbag nearly rips, swinging uncontrollably through the air. At the end of his training, the sadistic playboy says he can already hear his opponent's desperate cries from afar. With ironic applause, our MC enters the gym, praising the weight of his pretty boy enemy's punches. With his back to the punching bag, the playboy retorts that his strength still doesn't come close to the newbie's. Relaxed, the hero jokes that the villain's sense of humor is still an invitation to get punched in the face. Without his jacket, the former king of the streets offers some violent company for the arrogant suit's lonely training. With a wicked smile, the boy announces a juicy business offer along with the promised beatdown. On principle, the scummy director says he's already full and won't bite such weak bait. With another straight to the sandbag, the playboy states that hitting it is much simpler than closing a deal. With fury in his eyes, he admits that breaking the worker's face is also a very attractive idea at the moment. Without warning, our protagonist lands a monstrous flying kick directly on the gym equipment. With a thunderous impact, the heavy bag flies toward the pretty boy like an out of control missile. In complete shock, the rival director's eyes go wide, unable to understand how such a heavy object flew like that. With a murderous look, the hero mentions the motorcycle stock that the suit cowardly blocked from export. With a clenched fist, the MC tells the playboy to buy the entire fleet at once, one way or another.